Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Boundary Breakers. We've got some amazing plans for our episode here today. We're going to be talking about the threads of transformation and how we can weave communities together through the acts of volunteerism and intergenerational harmony. We are brought and welcomed here today by the wonderful Feezah. She is a member of the Ismaili community, and we're so thrilled to have a champion who cares about their community. And we're going to look into some amazing stories about how to get involved in volunteerism, how we can be involved in collective empowerment, and how we can stitch a sense of hope into our community here today. So, welcome, Feezah.
Oh, thank you so much, Piper. I'm very excited, very honored to be here. Uh, Preface this, I talk a lot with my hands, so you'll probably see a lot of this happening potentially.
Perfect.
But no, really looking forward to the conversation.
You know what they say about hand speakers is that they are more engaging to listen to because it
Um,
feels like you're involved in the
in the
conversation
process,
more.
yeah, you're fine.
Totally.
Yeah,
So I obviously know you a bit more than the audience. So could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? And then I'd like to go into a little exhibit about what you're doing in the Ismaili community and an event that you guys are doing in July.
sure, sure. So I'm Feezah Jaffer. I was born and bred here in beautiful British Columbia. Um, Come from a large, very large family on both sides. And so did a bit of a detour to Texas to finish my high school and university education. Did a year in Pakistan, kind of to really figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and then I moved back to Canada late in 2009. And since then, I've been involved in the nonprofit realm, and I've also been a volunteer with the Ismaili community. So being in Ismaili, our faith, my faith really plays a huge part in my daily living, right? So we live the faith every day, and part of that is to give back to the community, um, build bridges, bring people together, serve those most vulnerable, serve the seniors and the elderly population, connect youth, and really look at how spirituality and um, so the spiritual life and the material life can actually build harmony and build a balance. So I've been volunteering for about 15, more than 50, my whole life, 40 years.
Yeah.
With
Well, you don't
it's all
look it, that's for sure.
oh, thank you. It's all smoke and mirrors. So part of the ethos of Islam, and especially in the Ismaili tariqa, which is the Ismaili branch, is volunteerism, and so that is huge. And so from a young age, we're kind of embroiled in that. It's part of our lives. We go to the Jamaat kind of space. We volunteer. We pray. We have this is part of our daily life. So volunteering is huge. So what we're actually doing in my role within the Ismaili community right now is to put on. I'm part of the external relations portfolio, and so that we work with government, we work with civil society, we work with academia, and one of our big events that we do, we've started since last year. This is now our annual marquee event. Is celebrating Canada and the diversity of not only our Ismaili community, but the diversity of the community in which we live. And so in July 6th, we're actually putting on a very large event, hopefully over 2,000 people, at the Ismaili Center of Vancouver. So the entire community is welcome. So Ismailis, non-Ismailis, anybody of any faith, any background, any age is welcome to that event. So we're going to have like cultural displays, an art exhibit, a kids zone, a youth zone, food trucks, music, dance, like everything. And so that is actually going to be run by solely by volunteers. And
See,
so yeah, so it's going to be an amazing event. We just actually had a meeting last night to the planning
oh,
meeting.
no way.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing. So,
yeah.
do you find that being in Canada, since we're like a multicultural hub, like so involved in other cultures and, very inclusive to diversity and whatnot, is it easier to run an event like this in Canada where you're bringing together all these types of people, or what's your take on that?
I think so. I think Canada pluralism is a very um, it's a topic that's weaved through a lot of communities. So I think bringing communities together, like I was at the Vasaki parade here in Surrey last week, and over like 500,000 people from not only the East Indian community, but all some people from all different communities and coming together to celebrate this festival, right? So I think here in Canada, pluralism and diversity is celebrated and it's encouraged. So I think here it's a lot. It really lends itself to bringing people together. Probably
Yeah.
not as maybe I think not easier is the word, but I think it it allows for those conversations to happen in a more open environment, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and creating that open, safe feeling space is where we can really get down to the issues that we're,
Hmm.
facing as a society and just as a global
Yeah.
society. This isn't just
Yeah.
something that people of different cultures experience, but it's all around and interacting with each other. So I think it's great that there's um, more events happening like this, that people are able
Hmm.
to come together and really talk about what we all share in common, and that is just
Yeah.
celebrating,
It's
dancing, food, like we were
food,
mentioning.
food,
Yeah,
all
those
about
are
food.
some of the things
Yeah.
that bring people together so much.
Yeah.
And I
And
love
I,
that oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's always the online lag. What were you
was the lag.
saying?
But I think it's like culturally cultural diversity, religious diversity, um, diversity in experience, diversity in ages, diversity in like life experiences and where people come from. I think really what in my life, in my experiences, especially like working in the nonprofit, you see
Mhm.
people their best and you see them when they're not
At their
at
worst,
their
yeah.
yeah at their best. So having these commonalities, I think it's integral to building those relationships, building those bridges, and we have a lot more in common than we do differences, right?
Yeah.
We're across religions, across cultures, like food, family, um, dance, art, music. Like we all, every single culture in the world has
Yeah.
those elements, and we just have to find how we can blend them together.
Totally. And honestly, that's one of the most concerning factors about racism, because at the end of the day, we're all people from different parts of the world, and we're all the exact
Yeah.
same species. We're made up of the
All,
same things. So it doesn't make sense that
yeah,
we can't find that common ground, because basically all we have is common ground. Like the things that we pull each other apart about are so insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
yeah. So like we all bleed red. Like we're not
Mhm.
Vulcans. We don't have like green
Yeah.
blood or Klingons or purple blood or something. I really like what struck me. I think it was a few years ago. There was like an advertise. It was an ad, and there was people that gathered in a courtyard, gathered in a square or something, and then they had people go behind a screen and they just showed like the X-rays.
Yeah.
And then when they came out, they're it was like two women or a man, an elderly couple or two kids or and different races, different ethnicities, and they're all like we're all the same inside, right? We're
Yeah.
all made of carbon and water and muscle and blood and lymph and ideas and thought and soul and all these things. And the more people understand that, I think the better off we'll be in the world, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that concept about, all the things that make up our body in combination with our soul and our mind, it's a philosophic topic that so many scholars come back to, is that we are our soul living in a meat suit, and that is what we
Mhm.
all share in common. So it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter what clothes we put on, what color we are, like where we're born. At the basis, we are the same in that regard.
Yeah, and in like in the Quran, in the Bible, in the Gita, like whatever, God says basically the same thing. I have made you all humans from one soul,
Mm-hmm.
and I've made you in tribes to live in harmony together,
Yeah.
right? So whatever translation, whatever you believe, that is the kind of the tenet, the core tenet is we are all come from one place. We all go back to one place,
Yeah.
right?
I love
So,
that. And I love how you're pulling in these aspects of faith, which is so important. Whether you are spiritual, religious, not religious, we all know
mhm.
that there is some purpose to what we are doing here. So I want to know how your faith has influenced your past, your path that has brought you towards this approach of community created positive change, and how has your faith been kind of like a guide for that?
Yeah, so I think being born into a family that is Ismaili, is Muslim, believes in Islam, that it, like I mentioned before, we live it every day. It's part of the ethic that we live. So it's not only a quote unquote organized religion. The faith is, you believe in Allah, you believe in God, you believe Muhammad is his messenger, you believe in that core tenant. And then part of the ethic of that faith is you must live an ethical life. You give back to those most vulnerable. You take care of the elderly. You volunteer. You give back to your community. You make your community your home. And then you balance your spiritual, so the esoteric and the exoteric. You balance the zahir and the batin, or the din and the dunya, which is like the world. It's the internal world and your external world. Like you
Mm-hmm.
balance those together,
Yeah.
right? And so live an ethical life, build yourself, get an education, use your intellect.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then use your intellect to better serve your community, to serve your world? So that has been like the thread that has woven through my entire life, right? From a young age, my parents taught us to, like, if you have the ability to give back, you must give
Yeah.
back. You accumulate education, you accumulate knowledge, you accumulate wealth in order to serve your community, right? So there's no distinction between like have being poor or being rich, or middle class, or whatever it is. If you have the ability, you must
Do
do,
it. Mm-hmm.
right? So that has been the core principle that I've lived by for 40 years. it's it's not that I look my age, but that's it. It's like you build yourself to build others,
Yeah. I
everything, and
really love
that's
that. I think that that is something that so many people need to acknowledge and bring into their own lives, because that's what do they call it, like the American dream or the corporate way or the
yeah,
corporate path,
yeah,
where you have to start a job and then you climb the ranks and then you can
yeah,
finally have some money and retire when you're super old and live off that money.
yeah,
And there's so many successful people that don't give anything back to their community.
yeah.
And those are the people that have the most means to do so, because living in this capitalist world, it takes money to do things.
Mhm.
And when we have such a concentrated uh, wealth in a specific group that isn't giving back to the community, it is felt by the community.
Mhm.
And you don't even need to have like any sort of wealth to be involved. If you can only give
Yeah.
your time and your energy and
Time.
your
Yeah.
passion, then that's just as useful.
Yeah. So we in the Somali community, we have a program called TKN, which is Time and Knowledge. And so for His Highness, who's our Imam, so for his Golden Jubilee, the Jamaat, or the community, pledged time and knowledge uh, as a way to give back. And
Hmm.
so what we do is like whatever you can do. So you give like a year placement. You go from here, like if you're living in Canada, you can go to the rural, because that's what I did. I went to rural Pakistan for a year, and
Yeah.
I pledged my time and knowledge to better serve not only the Islamic community but the communities in which we live.
Hmm.
Right? So I spent a year in the Thar Desert on the border with India, working in an organization that had like microfinance, disaster relief, mother and child health um, programs, and so that was my way of really, number one, giving back to my community, but actually understanding who I was and what I
Yeah.
wanted to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
right? So that experience that year actually put me on the path that I've been on for the last 15 years, is coming, getting my education, getting my post-secondary, getting my master's degree, then actually going and living, getting out of this bubble, this
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote Western society bubble,
Yeah.
going and actually seeing um, what happens around the world, like traveling, meeting people that spoke a different language, that had a different culture, that ate different food, right? Sort of. But going, the food was amazing. But going there, living with them, living amongst them, understanding what they go through, and then coming back and bringing those lessons here to the work that I do here, completely changed my life.
Yeah. I love that. And in when you were traveling, seeing all these different communities, volunteering, would you be able to share an experience that you felt that you made an impact on someone's life, and why was it so significant to you?
So I think I will turn it around and say I had an experience that had an impact on my life.
Ooh,
Uh,
okay.
so, so the year that I spent in Pakistan, I was working in a small community called Tarparkar, which is on the border with India. And so we were doing, it was that month I was working with the microfinance team for this particular organization. And this lady, this elderly lady, she's probably not elderly, she's probably in her 60s, late 50s, early 60s.
Okay.
She came in and she said, I need a loan to buy. She said, I want to better my family's life. I want to start a sewing business. I need a loan to buy a sewing machine.
Hmm.
So the loan was $50. She said, I just
Okay.
need the loan for $50, what the equivalent in that in Pakistani rupees of $50 to buy a sewing machine, to start her business.
Hmm.
And so we're like, yeah, here's the rupees in that time, whatever it was, the $50 equivalent. And she took the money and she went away. 6 months later, she came back to pay back the loan.
Hmm.
And she had actually not only purchased a sewing machine, she'd purchased a second sewing machine. She'd made enough money to hire two other women
Yeah.
to help her business. She actually had enough money to get one of her daughters married in 6 months. And I was sitting there seeing the resilience of this woman, the passion of this woman, how she took $50, which I basically took for granted.
Yeah.
$50 is like five coffees or a
I don't
meal
even think you could
nowadays.
get five coffees
I
for
mean, yeah,
50
if you
these
go to like
days.
these fancy schmancy places, but like
Yeah.
$50, like we used to spend $50 on a dinner and not even
Yeah.
think about it. This is, I'm
Hmm.
talking 15 years ago. Now $50 is like one dish or something.
Yeah.
Or steak.
Basically.
Basic. It all comes back to food. But like
I love
$50,
food
which I
too.
completely took for granted every day of my life up until that point. And I thought to myself, looking at this woman, at what she did with that money, I was like, that is when the light bulb went
Mm.
off, right? If $50 can change somebody's life, and not
Yeah.
only her life, the life of multiple people
Hmm.
in her community, like what am I doing with
Yeah.
my life, right? Just throwing money, like living in a house, like driving a Mercedes, like what am I doing,
Yeah.
right? So that moment, that realization, that epiphany, I would say, changed then the course of my life. So I don't necessarily think that I changed her life, but she definitely changed mine.
Yeah. And really just gave perspective, you know?
Hmm.
And maybe like that $50, it doesn't even really matter where it is. Like if our dollar isn't
Yeah,
as much or their dollar isn't as
dollars
much,
of this much.
it's
Yeah.
the fact that it is a small amount of money that, with her dedication, she completely turned into a lifestyle and
Hmm.
is able to support people around her. That's something that I know I take for granted.
Yeah.
And I really should reflect on, how my own outlook on, my ambitions, what I could
Mhm.
do. And that's a lot. That's something that often stops people. It's like, I don't have any money. I'm just one person. Like, how am I supposed to change, well, that's a
Yeah,
perfect example as to how you can do it.
it's and I also think like that I'm one person, what can I do? I mean, that's a fallacy, really. You can, as one person, you can help somebody across the street. You can help an elderly person carry their groceries and help them put them in their car. You can give somebody a ride. You can volunteer your time. You can go pick up garbage on a beach or on a park. Like
Hmm.
you can help, you can go play sports with a kid. Like there's so many things. You don't have to have money,
Hmm.
right? It's not about money. It is your time, your knowledge, your empathy, your compassion, your
Hmm.
drive to want to do something.
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to change the world, right? You just do one kind thing a day or every 2 days, whatever, but just do it.
Yeah.
The whole point is to get off your butt and do it, I
Yeah.
think.
And I think it's also just that cognitive idea that I'm going to do
Do
something or
something.
even think about trying to do something that is not only going to benefit just me, that is something that, I feel like our world, this, you know, very individualistic,
Hmm.
it breeds selfishness,
Yeah.
and I do think there is always a time for people to be selfish, but time is the currency of our like human life. I know
Hmm.
we run on money, but like we are counting down the clock every single day.
Yep.
We all know what's going to happen. We're all not going to be able to live this life infinitely unless you're like a vampire or something. Um, but
Yeah.
like time is our currency that we have to give and to take and to, explore in. So just to have that idea in your head that, I'm going to do something, I'm going to go out of my way, I'm going to engage, that's already putting you into a better position in the community than most people. Most people don't
Hmm.
think about that.
Don't people think about that? Because I remember when I used to run the Surrey Food Bank.
Hmm.
I used to be part of the team, and then I was the executive director for about 5 years. And we had staff, of course, we had about 20 staff, but we ran on volunteers, like individuals coming in from every walk of life, youth, school age kids, university kids, retired teachers, retired doctors. We had corporate groups coming in, religious groups come, faith-based community groups coming in. And so it becomes a family. It becomes a network, a system. And the only reason that they're there is to help people, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And even within the Ismaili community, the ethos is we have a core, like we have a Ismaili volunteer core, like hundreds of people, thousands of people
Yeah.
just volunteering. Like all of our Jamaat Khanas, all of our events, everything that we do is run completely on volunteers.
Mhm.
Like very, very few, like nationally, a couple of paid staff because of the administration pieces, but globally, every single Jamaat Khana space, every single event is run by volunteers,
Mhm.
millions of people around the world, right?
Yeah.
And so that and it's not just our community, like the Sikh, I know the Sikh communities, the Hindu communities, the Jewish community, the Christian community, like all different walks of life, the Baha'i community, like every single faith in this world has this aspect as well.
Hmm. I love that. And there are. Oh, that is. I hope we're still live right now.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Uh-oh.
we're gonna go on as if we are.
We're gonna go on as if we are.
Yeah. So
Technology.
I know technology's the worst. So, while we're on this conversation of, different faith and cultures being involved, volunteering, giving their time, how do you think this plays a role in fostering better social cohesion between people? And does this aid in creating community resilience?
Oh, for sure. I think bringing people together, regardless of faith, is one of the cornerstones of building the community, right? So you have like we mentioned before, is that like every world religion, world faith has that core tenet in it. Like we
Hmm.
all believe in something. We not may not believe the same thing, but we believe in enough that we have enough commonalities in the stories, in the teachings, in the ethos that we can find that common ground and we can build a bridge to do something together. And that's the thing is, for me personally, it doesn't matter to me what you believe, who you are, who you love, where you live. If you're there to work, if you're there for the cause, come on, grab. Here's your t-shirt. Here's your shovel. Let's plant a tree. Here's
Yeah.
your picker. Let's go. Doesn't matter to me. You can be blue, green, purple. If, as long as you're there for you've drunk the Kool-Aid and you're there for the same purpose,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like, let's work together. Let's have those conversations. Let's have those dialogues and build and make a difference.
Yeah. No, that resonates so deeply with me, and I think that just goes back to what we were saying about just giving up your time and to be
Yeah,
involved in
just
something.
yeah, and just be there. Just be there. Like, if again, if you can't do, like, if maybe physically you can't do something, you can still be there to support. Like, if you have mobility issues, if you have differing abilities, you can still do something,
Hmm.
right? You can still be there. You can hold the flag. You can hold the garbage bag. You can give out something. You can give out water. You can give out juice. Like, whatever it is, you can still be part of the community, part of the team, part of the event,
Yeah.
right?
So before we move into our little game section, while we're
So,
still on the topic of volunteerism, I wanted to ask how you envision the future of volunteerism in light of how technology is growing, how social avenues are expanding. How do you envision volunteerism is going to play a role in this upcoming world?
I think it's going to be very different. But I think we have to embrace the technology, right? So before it was like phone trees, calling people, putting on a handwritten spreadsheet, all these things. But now it's like you go online and you register and you get your profile and you get to choose what you want to do, right? But I think the human aspect will still be there, right?
Yeah,
Because you still need the human body to do it. I'm sorry, AI is coming and machines are coming. The machine overlords are coming. We're in the matrix,
yeah.
but it's we still need the human capital. You still need the sweat equity, right? So people, I think if there is a common cause, people will always rally around it. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, we see that what's happening in the geopolitically in the world right now. Like, it's a spark. Like, in like Greta Thunberg, environmentalism. One kid sparked it,
yeah,
right? All of these things that are happening now around the world. What happened in Iran, what happened in Iraq, what happened in Syria, what is happening now in Israel and in Palestine, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, like all of these things. You have the human capital. You have people who are wanting to help, who are wanting to make a positive influence. So I think volunteerism it is aged like back in the pre-Greek Hellenic days, back to ancient
yeah,
Egypt, right? So um it's there, it'll still be there, and I think it is still much needed. Because, like we said, it is a capitalist society.
yeah,
However, money can't necessarily buy everything. You still need people. You still need the will, the determination, and the compassion to get stuff done. Really.
yeah. And, just back to the basis of what humans are, we are social beings.
Yeah.
We need that connection to one another. And even if,
Mhm.
like you were saying, AI becomes even more all encompassing than it already is growing to be, that is
Yeah.
never going to change. We aren't robots. We are
No.
living mammals, we are animals. And we'll never be able to drop that part of who we are and
Mhm.
our history, whether you believe in evolution or not.
Yeah.
We are social. That is what we are. Even the look at the family unit.
Hmm.
How more humans come into this world is through social connection. And
Hmm.
I'm not from a big family. I know other cultures
Hmm.
have huge families, like you were saying, like your own.
Yeah.
But my family is so tight knit. I even have my
Hmm.
brother here with me right
Yeah.
now. Um, and it's so important, and that's not something that humans will ever be able to let go of.
Yeah, and like yeah, and touching on family, like I said, my family is pretty big with siblings, like I have 32 first cousins alone,
That's
right? And
crazy.
yeah, and we all know a little too much about each other, and we're all kind of in each other's lives, which is good.
Yeah.
But it's like yeah, the social connections is like those are my those are the people that I would call if I need bail money or something, right? So I know my sister, my cousin, like those are the people that I would, my
Mm.
brother potentially, depending on which one, how much trouble I'm in. I have three brothers, but it's like, and one used to be a police officer, so it's
Oh
like
no.
calling
I don't
him,
know if you want to call that one then.
call him, yeah, for
Yeah.
bail money. But it's like, yeah, my friends, like all of these things, that these are the people that like, you surround yourself with the people that lift you up,
Hmm.
right? And those social connections, yeah.
Yeah, and you know that same feeling just corresponds into what it is to be a community, like sharing that love, sharing that passion, sharing that care, and just connecting with one another. Super important. So we've talked, we keep coming back to the idea of food. Let me get this on full screen. So, uh, food is pivotal to our lives as humans. We got to run our meat suit. We need
Yeah,
fuel. It's everyone needs it. And it's also super cultural. Everyone has a different type of cuisine from where they come from, and there's a lot of stories in that. So this game is called Food Fusion, and I'm going
okay,
to show you some different ingredients, and
okay.
I want you to think of a dish that you could make about this, and why you chose that dish. Is there a story about it? And yeah, let's get right into it.
Okay.
So, we've got two different
Ah,
protein options. I feel like chicken, this is my
mhm.
personal favorite protein. I feel like you can put anything with it. But also chickpeas, right?
Chickpeas, yeah.
If you're not for those of us that are vegan, vegetarian, or you're not as tolerant to meat, or you're
Yeah.
not feeling like meat that day.
Sorry, Piper. Sorry. Hey, sorry. Can I go? Hold on. Sorry, I have people doing work in my house right now. Sorry, hold on.
No worries. That's just part of being live. So I'm gonna show the audience a little bit about our next set of ingredients that we have. So vegetables, we need the fiber, we need the nutrients, the vitamins, and potatoes. Potatoes. I am a potato girl myself. Mash them, fry them, put them in a stew, whatever. And they're super nutritious, but I feel like there is such a stigma about potatoes that they're all weight gaining. But if you look into um, what potatoes are, they're super nutrient dense. They are able to grow in difficult environments, other than like in the potato famine. Yeah, anyway, I was showing the audience about these vegetables, and I went on a rant about
Sorry.
potatoes. So,
Sorry.
don't
Sorry about that.
worry.
Sorry about that. People, I had my house had a flood earlier this week, and so
Oh
was
no!
it was the plumber saying he's changed the valves and stuff. So yeah. So
Hey,
I'm sequestered in my guest room right now because my room is a disaster because my
hey,
bathroom. But yeah,
that's all part of showbiz, and we're
yeah,
human, so can't go
yeah.
back on that. I was telling the audience about the importance of vegetables. Kids,
Ah,
you know, grow up hating vegetables, but now I'm really starting to like them. I'll actually go out and get carrots just to like munch on them.
you know what was is ironic? Like when I was growing up, I hated Brussels sprouts, but now I'm
Okay,
like I love Brussels sprouts. Like
how do you prepare them? I still
so you
haven't had
put
them the way
them
I like them.
so you put like parboil them a bit or you roast them a bit and you put some honey on them and then some pecans on them, maybe a little balsamic vinegar. You toss them and they're good.
That does sound really
Or you air
good.
fry. Like I did that and I tossed them in honey, a little like watered down honey. Cut up some pecans, put a little bit of balsamic. You toss them and you throw them in an air fryer.
I feel like that'd even be good with like a little bit of goat cheese in there. I feel
Yeah, or
like that'd be
something.
fire. You know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to go out and get some Brussels sprouts and munch on those.
Yeah, and it's a thing. Parmesan cheese
Oh,
on it.
parm. You need parm for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, these are some of our other ingredients that you get to pick from. And
Okay,
then, oh yeah,
so
I can go back too, because the flood and everything.
yeah. So no, so we had chicken, we had chickpeas, we had potatoes, we had vegetables. I see spices,
Yeah,
garlic.
this is our last slide here.
I see yogurt. Okay, perfect. I have the perfect thing. So
Okay, let's hear it.
my most favorite thing in the world is a dish called kni. It's like a rice pilau, and it's the best thing that my mom makes. It's my favorite thing that she makes. And on the side of it, she makes a chickpea curry
Hmm.
beside it. So during COVID, like for 36 years, I didn't know how to cook. Like I could cook in the sense of, like past like Italian food, like steak, potato, like Chinese food, like
Basic
stir
stuff.
fry, just like yeah, it's like a college kid. Like what can you the mac and cheese, that kind of stuff. I could feed
Yeah.
myself basically. And then I started venturing out into like, okay, like roasted chickens and stews and roast and everything. But during COVID, because we were separated for so long, I was very used to seeing my parents like every week,
Yeah.
right? But because they live just across the border from us here, and so but the borders were closed for 2 years,
Hmm.
so I couldn't see them physically. So what my mom and I decided to do is she's like, you need to learn how to cook. You have this new house, which now is flooded, but in this beautiful kitchen, so you need to learn how to cook. So every Saturday we would go on a Zoom call and she would teach me to cook. And this akni
Aw.
was the first thing that she taught me to cook. And the thing with my mother and all of her sisters is they don't necessarily follow a recipe. They said, here it is, put it in. What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it taste like?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I need to write down, okay, how much salt, how much turmeric, how much like coriander powder, how much cumin powder, how much yogurt. She's like, no, 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 just throw it in and turn the camera to just let me see the pot. And if it looks right, and if you smell that it smells right, it's
And it's
fine.
good.
And I was like, oh, what? But it worked.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So yeah. And so that's what
Uh,
I would make.
well, I feel like that is a dish that's going to include so many different things and be super filling. And,
Yeah.
the best part of food, especially, if you have that memory of, eating with your mom, having these Zoom meetings where she would teach you how to cook, it's that homey feeling that food gives
Mhm.
you. And that's
Yeah.
why a lot of people find so much comfort in it. I know I'm one of them.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and there's just so much more to what we put in our bodies than just that. And
Mhm.
it's a social thing too. Like so many holidays is a whole family around the table and we're eating and
Mhm.
we're talking, and
Yeah.
that's like the basis of what we're gonna do for a whole holiday. So I love that story. If I were to make something out of that, I feel like I would just go for um, my classic butter chicken. It's the only
Uh,
Indian dish I know how to make, but I'm so happy with it.
Very good.
I'm from the Western world as well, and
Yeah.
there's always like, yeah, white people are always eating butter chicken, but it's so good.
Chicken. Oh, sorry.
They do it
That's
right.
sorry. That's the plumber again. Sorry.
Hey, no worries. Um, we can always keep going. So, people in the audience who were paying attention to the game, what would you guys make out of those ingredients? Did you know about the dish that Feezah was talking about? Let's hear your voices in the chat. We can't wait to reflect on that. So, while the audience is coming up with their own dishes to the game, I would like to talk a little bit about how volunteerism, faith, community, all these things can help build connections between youth and seniors. These are
Mm,
two so separate groups
yeah.
that don't have the opportunity to interact as much. So, I want you to share an example of a successful intergenerational program, activity, initiative, or just, situation that you've been involved in, and, why was it significant to you?
So we have within, I mean, intergenerational programs are huge for us in the Somali community. So what we do, because we have in our Jamaat kind of spaces, we have volunteers of all ages. So we have youth volunteers, youth and young volunteers, um, people like middle aged, and then like seniors. So a lot of our seniors take these youth and young volunteers under their wing, and they kind of show them the ropes, because like these are they have stories of what, like, back in East Africa, back in India, back in Afghanistan, like what was happening, and bringing, and what the faith is, and how does it weave through. So I see that every day, really, when I go into the Jamaat kind of spaces. Also, we have it's like senior centers that we have. So we have drop-in senior centers. So we have a lot of younger, quote unquote, younger people as volunteers serving the seniors. One particular um, experience that I had that, again, was a pivotal moment for me was during His Highness the Aga Khan, during his Diamond Jubilee,
Okay.
which is in 2017, 2016, 2017. He he traveled all over the world and did what's called a darbar, so or a didar. So he comes, and all of the Ismailis go, and he gives his farman and his words and everything. So we had it at a BC place, and I was the project manager for the special needs medical team, and or high needs medical team. And so we had um, people with like chronic illnesses, people who were in hospital, people who were in long-term care facilities, and we actually transported them into the space, and they got to see him potentially for the last time because of their illnesses, and then he gave them special blessings and everything. But what really struck for me is the amount of peace, the amount of, I'm gonna cry. The experience for me was even serving these seniors water and the blessings that they give you, that, God bless you and keep you safe. Blessings for your education, blessings for your life, make your families, like all of these blessings that, again, you take for granted to a certain degree. These seniors, these people with these illnesses, like in that space, in that moment, giving this lady a cup of water, and she touched my hand, and she gave me these blessings. I will never forget that.
Mm.
And to see the youth and the other people like in my age group, like doing this work, doing, and without any like ego, without anything,
Yeah.
like we're all here for this special event. Yeah, we had like backstage problem, like any big event, there's like craziness happening. But in that moment, the experience that I had, and that I know that others had, maybe not the same, but similar,
Hmm.
that was another pivotal moment for me. So you talk about how volunteerism, intergenerational volunteerism, and those kind of experiences can shape somebody's life. So
Yeah.
if a youth has a volunteer experience, even for 5 minutes, like it could potentially change their life. So we had, going back to my food banking days, we had a young woman. She was just starting out university, and she's like, I want to be a CPA, I want to be a banker. I love finance. I'm so good at math and all these things. And we actually had the CEO of a very prominent financial institution. That group was in there that day volunteering, and I'm like, hey, here's this person, talk to them,
Hmm.
right? And the connection was made, and she got an internship, and kept talking, and now I think she's working for that bank. Like those kind of things happen. So you never know what experience you're going to have. You never know who's going to be in the room. You never know what it's going to do to change your life,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. And,
So.
Here at Love Caravan, we are right there with you. We
Yeah.
see and have addressed the merit in having these two different groups connect, how volunteerism
Hmm.
plays into that, and the beauty that it can make in individuals' lives.
Yeah.
And I really liked what you said about that moment and, and taking things for granted. And that is something that is so human that we all do. And we do take things for granted way too often. And it is all about, you know, staying in the moment and, you know, feeling how important moment is and how it's going to affect the outlook on your life and how it's going to impact the people that were surrounded in that moment,
Hmm.
and it's just something that's so fleeting, but it's going to stick in your mind. Like you were saying that that tiny interaction with the water was going to
Hmm.
make you cry. And that's something that, some people are going to just brush off and not really think about. But you have to stop and think about it and think
Hmm.
about its significance and really feel that. Um, Otherwise, you're just, like I said, taking it for granted. So
Granted.
it's really
Yeah.
important to stay that way.
And I found, Piper, in my life, like the little things, the little moments is what I remember.
Hmm.
Like I remember my first memory ever is actually going, I was probably less than a year old or a year old, going downstairs in our house and waking my grandmother up, my mother's mom. And I never knew her because she passed away when I was like 15, 16 months. I don't have a clear memory of her, but
Yeah.
that is my first memory of actually going downstairs, going into her room and shaking her and saying, "Ma, wake up,"
Yeah.
right? And from that point, like that's where my memory starts. And then another thing is I was very close, and a lot of my cousins, we were very close to my other grandmother, my dad's mom, who passed away 2 years ago. And every day I would call her, like 4:30 every single day. I would call her on my way home from work, and that relationship changed my life. Like
Yeah.
that connection. Like I still have, like every time she would talk about how she, like what it was like for her growing up. She got married at 14. She had 9 children. She had all these tons of grandchildren, great
Yeah.
grandchildren. And like every time I would go to her house, pretty much every week, I would record her. And so I still have her stories on my phone, recorded on my phone. Um, I was for about 5 years, I was the caregiver for my aunt, who passed away 7 years ago. And again, every day I would go, she got to a certain point where um, she had to go into a long-term care facility. But every day after work, I would go have dinner with her, right? And keeping that connection
Hmm.
going, right? And to like every then Saturdays I would take her down and she'd get her nails done, she'd get her hair done, and like they'd have like the family time and all these things. And so, but like those are the connections that mean the most to me,
Yeah.
right? The connection that I have with older, like a lot of my friends are actually older than me. I have a few younger, but they're actually older. So, but it's those are the connections that I cherish the most. Those like three or four that really have shaped who I am as a person,
Yeah.
you know? And they're
I,
and they're all older, right? That
yeah.
because that age group is like we're gonna be there one day,
Yeah.
right? But it's like cherish those connections, cherish those elders because they're the storytellers. They're the ones who hold things together,
Yeah.
right?
And I totally relate to that. Like as a kid, I would always be more interested in like hanging out with my teacher at lunch than other kids because um, they've lived so much more life. They have
Yeah.
more experience. They have more things to say. They have more knowledge. And why wouldn't you want to engage in conversations like that? And like hearing
Yeah.
your stories, like from that'd be your grandmother that you took the
Hmm.
recordings of her stories of and whatnot. Those are not things that people experience today. Like
Right.
that's living history.
Hmm.
And that's just to pull from indigenous culture,
Hmm.
that passing down of tradition and story, oral
Hmm.
teachings, sharing in that is like the crux of their like culture and
Yeah,
their faith, and um, that doesn't just have to be something that only indigenous people do, but everyone does that.
everyone does it.
Like, and we don't want to lose that. You know, we were talking about this earlier, like ever growing technology and whatnot. There is still so much to be learned
Hmm.
just by people talking with one another and sharing their
Hmm.
experiences and sharing opinions and all that. So it's the best to do that with people that have lived more life than you, because in that they've lived more life than you.
Exactly. They know what they're talking about. Sometimes they say weird stuff,
Yep.
but sometimes they know what they're talking about. Like it was so crazy. I had, but speaking of generation gap, so I have nieces and nephews, and I know my sister-in-law is watching too. But like I had the kids over, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna watch a movie. And they're like, I'm like, have you seen The Princess Bride? And they're like, no. I'm like, you haven't seen The Princess Bride? Like,
What the
what is
heck?
happening? Like, have you seen The Wizard of Oz? No, what? Like, those are my favorite movies. Like, you have not seen, I'm
Classic.
like, you were sitting down, and then like after 20 minutes, like, can we watch something else? Can we watch YouTube? I'm like, oh, right?
And kids shows are getting worse and worse. Like
Those,
I think when I was a kid, we had the peak like television
oh
shows. We
yeah.
had Zack and Cody. We had Wizards of Waverly
Oh,
Place,
place. Oh yeah.
iCarly, like Zoe 101. So many
Yeah.
classics. And now kids these days are watching Paw Patrol. It's like,
Paw Patrol's like
what
Peppa
is
Pig.
that?
Well, Peppa Pig is not bad,
I
but
haven't even gotten into Peppa Pig, but
oh,
Paw Patrol I can't get behind.
I can't.
It's not
No,
it for
I
me.
can't either. No, and like the 80s and 90s, like I'm an 80s and 90s kid, so the Renaissance, like the cartoon Renaissance, like Power Rangers, Captain Planet, X-Men, like Disney's House of Mouse, like
Yeah.
Thundercats,
Oh,
Cyberpunk,
classic.
like all of the classics, man. And like these kids today have no clue
No
what I'm talking
taste.
about.
No
No
taste at
taste
all.
whatsoever. Talk about intergenerational needs. We need to get them
That
better
is,
cartoons.
I was totally going to ask you about what opportunities we could have to bring youth and seniors together. Let's start with television shows. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
come on.
Let's
Sorry,
go.
plumber, plumber again. Sorry.
No worries. We're going to ask the audience a question anyway. So, moving into our final segment of today, um, we would like to ask the audience to put your questions in the chat if you have anything you want to ask Feezah and I. If you have anything we want to go over, if you have any comments you want to add. And while you guys are typing that out, I'd like to ask you, Feezah, who is someone from your network or that you've met, um, or just someone that you've, been introduced to that you think would be a valuable asset to come and speak on our Boundary Breakers show?
Oh,
And why do you think that they would be a significant guest audience member? And while you think on that,
hmm.
Cinnamon, our LC ambassador, actually nominated you
Yeah.
for an episode. And look at that. Look at how
Look
amazing this
at
has
that.
turned out. So we're creating these
Oh,
connections and seeing how
there's
far
so
we can
many.
take it.
There's so many. There's so many people running through my. I'm actually. Can I get back to you on this?
Yes, you totally can.
Because there's a couple that I think would be great. Uh, and it can be any like regardless of gender, right? So
Of course.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
any gender,
There's
any age, any industry,
okay.
someone that's got something important to say. And obviously, if it relates to anything community building, that's great
Building.
because,
Okay.
we are a community. Just any like minded people that you think would be great to
Okay.
talk to and hear from.
Right.
Uh,
There's three or four. I'll think on it and then get back to you on this one. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we've got a question in the chat. Living with so many family members, were there any really funny moments or disagreements that you'd like to share, um, and everyone has
Well,
inside jokes.
three brothers, really. My youngest elder brother, he actually lives in California right now with his wife and son. And we can actually our thing is we literally text each other and have conversations and movie quotes. So
Okay.
because we both kind of have semi-eidetic memories that if we see a movie once, like we can quote it. So it's either like Back to the Future, Terminator, Princess Bride, Star Wars.
Oh
Um,
yes. May the
we
force
just
be with
have,
you.
yeah. So like I would text him, my name is Inigo Montoya, and he would text back,
Yeah.
you killed my father, prepare to die. Like, and we just had like for days, like our text chain is just movie quotes. Like Indiana Jones, like we just like or like kindergarten, like it's not a tumor, it is, yeah, all
Yeah.
these things. So that's one of the big things with them with my brother. But having a big family, like it's just every time we get together as a family, it's just laughter, right? That is the biggest thing. And while my grandmother was still alive, like cousins, we would go and play like almost every other Saturday or Friday, because like her house was like the gathering place, right? So we would go and we'd play cards and she would cheat.
Yeah.
She would like cheat like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And so we all wanted to be on her team because she would always win because she was cheating,
Yeah.
right? And we would call her out on it. She's like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm not cheating." And like, Bibs, like you're like still
You're like
cheating.
you
You're like
hiding
in
cards
front of
under
our
your
face. She's
table.
like, "I'm an old woman. I'm allowed to cheat. I whatever it does." Like, so those kind of things is what I remember. And just yeah, the food and laughter
Yeah.
are the two big things for us.
Yeah. I would love to have a movie night with your family.
Oh, it's
I
fun.
would already know there'd be amazing food. We'd have funny older ladies trying to cheat at games. And my Grammy is the exact same, by the way. She
Yeah,
is always going to cheat but she never
yeah.
wins because she's losing her spunk at it. She's growing
Oh,
soft, and it shows
yeah.
in her gaming. Yep, she is.
Oh no, my when my grandmother passed away, she was 92, and up until like the last few months, like Spunk City, like she would dance, like she's like for my sister's wedding, and she'd been married over 20 years, and people still come up to her when they meet her, like, "Oh, your grandmother, I still remember her dancing at your
Such a
wedding."
party.
Right? Like the life of the party kind of thing. And my mother's the same way. My aunts are the same way. My uncles are some of them are that way too. But like it's those kind of things that really connect us.
No, totally. I think these are some bases that connect all people. Like I don't even think we talked about food or movies before or games,
That's
and now look at us. We're right
look at
here in
right there.
we're in the
Yeah.
moment. And I loved what you were saying about references. I talk in references constantly, and it
Absolutely.
sucks when people don't
They don't get
watch
it.
everything you do. I'm like, "Ah, you are no fun.
Just like
You have no idea what
I
I just
do
said."
like I do Star Trek references, I do Star Wars references, I do Indiana Jones, I do like Back to the Future, and some people just look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, you don't
Like you got to get out
understand.
more. Like,
You have to live a life. Like
yeah.
go rent a movie. Like go on Netflix. They're all on Netflix. Like everybody's got Netflix. Um, but it's yeah, it's crazy.
Totally. Um, so now that we've kind of brought it to a close today, are there any final remarks, comments, anything that you think we didn't get to today that you would like to impart onto the audience?
Well, number one, I apologize for the interruptions in
Hey,
the
that's
live.
life. That's life.
The plumber coming in. I'm here to disconnect your sinks. So you don't have water now, which is great. Final words of wisdom, I think would just be like go out and give your time. See what you're passionate about, see what moves you,
Mhm.
um, what what you want to do, who is in your life. Surround yourself. I'm tangenting now. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and really look at what makes you happy, what moves you, and do that.
Yeah.
However you can, give your time, give your knowledge, and just go out and do something. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be big. It can be really, really small. Like I said, like helping a person across the street, like helping a senior put their groceries in their car. Like it's the little things, and a lot of little things can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So just yeah, just see who you are, what moves you, what drives you, and go do that and give your time.
Totally. And this life is a blessing. The fact that we are alive and able to interact with others like
Mhm.
is something so out of this world, that I'll always be
Yeah.
thankful for. And everyone else out there should remember to be thankful for that.
Mhm.
And I'd like to bring it back to, at the end of the day, we're all people. We have
All
so
people.
many commonalities. Like you said, we have so much more in common than we don't. And they say it in every religion in some sort of way, every faith, that you are to love thy neighbor and be involved in what
Yep.
they're doing, and that's so important. What you were saying about even helping a old person walk across the street, you see someone drop their lunch and it spills all over the floor, you help them pick up their lunch, and then maybe you go
Lunch.
get lunch with them, like whatever it
Yeah.
is. um Doing good things will make you feel better. And,
Mhm.
if you go into something you see that you can be involved in, it'll make yourself feel better. So, like, that in its own way is like, I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to do something that's going to make me feel better. And I'm going
Yeah.
to improve other people's lives in the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
everyone just
because
remember.
yeah, I used to I say it all the time. There's no such thing as an unselfish act.
Mhm,
People say, "Oh, is it unselfish?" No, because you always get something out of it,
mhm. Yeah,
and hopefully it's always positive,
yeah,
right? And so
100%.
yeah, go out and be selfish and put out the positive vibes, right?
Yeah, totally. I always feel so good about myself when I do something good. I'm like, "Ugh, I'm
Yeah,
just such a good
I'm
person."
such a good person. Yeah, exactly.
So,
It's all about me. It's all about me.
we know that everyone's going to feel that same way. So, get involved
Yeah.
in your community, help an old person, help the blind, do
Yeah.
whatever you can, pet a dog.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Those are really
donate,
fun.
whatever you can do.
Yeah.
But I'd like to thank everyone. We had an amazing audience today, super involved. And I'd like to thank you, Feezah, for coming in and, sharing your stories and your input. And, everyone who's in the area, please go to the Canada Day event.
Mhm.
We'll post about it on Instagram, and we've shared Fee's
Nice.
Instagram as well. So please check that out and stay involved in that. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. All right.
This is another great episode. We'll catch you in the next one.
All right. Thank